Hello. um so it's been a while since I posted on this channel. It's been 8 years since I posted anything, and it's been 13 years since I posted a vlog. Which was what what to do and not to do on a Disney college program phone interview. So phone interview. Sorry, sometimes I like slur my words and I'm just like bleh. Anyway, I just want to kind of like I've been going through these videos and I've been kind of reflecting, and I wanted to like kind of like give an update of like what's been going on, like what's been going on with my life and the experiences I've had and the lessons I've learned and the people I've met, and because I think it's interesting to kind of like keep an update with this. I know a lot of people probably don't look at this channel, which is probably for the best. But if you do watch this channel, if you did watch this channel and subscribe to it, of this like weird 16-year-old neurodivergent kid who talks about like film and anime and shit, like, hi, it's been a while. So let's talk about some stuff. So the last video that I ever made with my face on it, talking to the camera, was the Disney college program thing. And since then, I did work for Disney on and off for a decade, from 2013 to 2022, late 2022. So like almost 10 years. My first program was like, I made some great friends. Like I still have contact with some people that I made in my first program. But it came down to the job that I was doing. Mostly, I just can't do customer. I think everyone should do customer service at least once, because customer service, teaches you how to be humble. It teaches you that, like, you're not the center of the universe. It teaches you how not to treat people. And that's by observing the customers. Because the customers, that saying, the customer is always right, is complete and utter bullshit. You have these people who come in demanding the world from you when you're paid minimum wage, and and you just kind of learn, like, like, you don't want to be that person. You don't want to be those kind of customers. So that was a very important lesson that I learned. I worked on the boats. I've worked as a park greeter. That was my first job. And then I went back to Disney a few years later, and then I worked as custodial, which was a lot better. And then not only that, I met like one of my best friends ever during my second college program. And they are gonna post a trailer tomorrow for their webcomic, so I'm very excited about that. So other than that, I lived with my grandparents again for a few years, and then I moved to California in 2019 when I was 25. Unfortunately, my grandma passed away a few months after that. She had a stroke like a month after I moved, and then she passed away a few months after that, which was very devastating for me, especially the fact that 2 months later, I discovered that I had cancer, which was a very fun journey for me. Sarcasm. Luckily, I didn't have to go through radiation or chemo. It was a mass on my kidney. It was renal cell carcinoma, which is either the easiest cancer to get rid of or the hardest cancer to get rid of, because once it spreads, there's nothing you can really do. But you can remove it if it's like isolated. You can just remove part of the kidney, and then that's it. So that's what happened to me, fortunately. So I'm very grateful that that happened. When I moved to California, I worked at Disneyland. I worked as custodial because, like, be in the place that you were fine with when you were in your second college program. I was part of the youth education series for a very short time until COVID happened, and, COVID kind of screwed everyone's lives over. I pursued voice acting. I was in a show called Onyx Equinox as the main character, Ezel, which is one of the best working experiences I've ever had in my life. Like, the people that I worked with were wonderful people, and they were so supportive when I had that cancer moment, and I just will never forget their kindness, and I want to pay that kindness forward, in any way possible, and a lot of the crew and the cast I still talk to, and it's great. Like, I'm very grateful for that experience. I worked at Knott's Scary Farm, as you can see from my shirt. I did everything that I wanted to do at Knott's Scary Farm, which was awesome. Like, I didn't even ask for the roles that I got, but I did everything that I wanted to do. I worked in Clown Hell in Dark Ride. I worked in I was the host for Paranormal Inc. I was which was great because I always wanted to do that too, but I never asked for it, which was great. So it was very serendipitous. I was very happy. I never want to do Knott's Scary Farm ever again, because I know that there's a lot of things that go around in behind the scenes, and I know that I was very lucky for the positions that I was in because I was on a stage in the first one, so I was away from guests, and then also I was, like, the host of the pre-show, so, like, no guest is gonna come up to me and punch me in the face. They would just, like, get tackled by everyone else. But, like, yeah, I was very lucky for those two positions, and I just don't want to taint my memories working at Knott's. And yeah, so I didn't do more of that. I almost did. I almost worked in streets for Goring 20s, but because of conflicts with working at Disney at the time, I just couldn't do it. But I did end up on a ride, so that was awesome. That was an awesome way to go out. I was really happy that I was a face and a voice on a ride, because I'm a huge ride buff. I love roller coasters. Yeah, so that's cool. You know, I've made friends, I've lost friends, some because of me, some because of them, some because of both. Like, it's life. That's what's gonna happen. I dropped a friendship, a decades long friendship, just like a few months ago. Like, it's, you never know what's gonna happen, So yeah, like, I've done that. In 2025, I was in a point of my life, where I was really unhappy. I was living in a toxic environment, with a toxic former roommate. I was working at a very toxic job. And I had a mental breakdown, and I moved to Colorado because of that. Because my sister lives in Colorado as well as my brother. So I moved here, in 2025, and I love it. Like, it's such a beautiful state. I still do voiceover. I work remotely. I work out of my closet, and I still have my agent, which is great. And then I also work in trade show management. So as you've seen in like other videos, I talk about cons a lot, of going to Anime Next and Anime Boston and New York Comic Con and San Diego Comic Con and blah blah blah. I work in trade show management. We build booths and manage booths, and I do a lot of show services coordination with the general contractors and the labor and the transportation and blah blah blah. We don't really have anime clients. We don't like any geeky niche like film or anime or comic book clients, which would be really awesome to have, but we have mostly medical medical and food. So there's that. And then what else? Yeah, I try to go on an adventure every weekend, depending on my finances. I'm in the same boat as everyone else. The cost of living is extraordinarily high and awful and nearly impossible because of things that I won't get into. But I'm doing my best, and I know that people are in a lot worse situations than I am in right now. So there's that. But yeah, just overall in terms of life, I've calmed down about a lot of media and shit. Like, when you work in film and TV and animation, like, you kind of learn. I was watching an old video of me being like, yeah, when I go to New York Comic Con, I'm like expecting people to rip off M. Night Shyamalan's head for The Last Airbender, and I'm like, dude. I'm like, he made a bad movie. He made a very bad movie, but like, that's not an indictment on his character, like on M. Night Shyamalan's character. Like, I'm sure he's a very nice guy. Like, and he's made some good movies before. It just didn't seem like it was like in his passion, or maybe he was passionate about it. It was just misguided. Like, I don't know. Like, it's art is, it's art. So, yeah, and then, in terms of favorite films and TV shows and stuff like that, I'm huge on Regular Show. Regular Show's my favorite. I'm still huge on South Park. Rango is still my favorite animated film of the 2010s. Toy Story 3, and it's funny because Toy Story 5 just came out. Toy Story 3, I'm not, like, as big as I was back in the day. I think Toy Story 2 is my favorite. But, like, it is nice, like, Toy Story 5, like, coming out. It is nice to see Buzz and Jessie content, because I do mention that in my original thoughts on Toy Story 3, which is very funny. One of my favorite films is Everything Everywhere All at Once. Still, Clockwork Orange is still my favorite film of all time. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is my favorite animated movie of the 2020s. But it could go to either Wildwood or Tangles or Forgotten Island, which is the same director as Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. It's all contingent on that. I mean, like, animation, like film and animation this decade is like, oh my god. So it's crazy. So overall, the lessons is, the lessons that I've learned is really, oh yeah, one more thing that I want to talk about. So I've come to grips with my sexuality as well as my gender identity. So I identify as non-binary. And then in terms of my sexuality, I'm actually aromantic asexual, or ace. I love romance in fiction, in like sci-fi and comic books and stuff like that. Like, if it's a good ship, if it's a well-written relationship, I am all for it. If I will husbando the shit and waifu the shit out of a bunch of fictional characters like Garrus, my beloved. Garrus, my beloved. Hot Girl from Justice League. Cyber 6. Like, yeah, I'll go all over that. But when it comes to real life romantic relationships, I'm like, hell no. I'm like, I don't like being touched that way. So, and that's fine. I value my friendships. I value the relationships, the platonic relationships that I have with the people that I know. And I think that, and also I value my independence. I think that people should be less ashamed of doing things like going on adventures by themselves. Because I think that you kind of get to know about your limits. And when you're with someone, when you're going to on adventures with other people, you have to kind of like adapt to their limits. You kind of got to compromise. But like going on solo adventures, you don't have to compromise. You can be like, okay, I'm kind of tired. I want to check out right now, like, or I don't. I'm talking about like mainly theme parks, but like I don't feel that great, or I'm just kind of hungry. Like you can go on your own pace, which I think that it's important to have. Um, but yeah, for me, what makes my friendships last is just like having self awareness. Like I think that's what makes. I think that's the gauge for my boundaries is that I know that people like everyone humans are not perfect. We're not perfect. We have complicated emotions, we have complicated feelings. Um there is a lot of evil in the world, I will say that. Especially when you go on the news, but like the people that you personally know, there is a lot of complications there. It's I think what separates a good person from a bad person is their self-awareness and the fact that they have the insight to look into themselves and say maybe I might be a problem. So yeah, I'm not going to lie, I've been a shitty friend to a lot of people. And I had to learn from that and I had to own up to that. And there's some things that I cannot repair, which is, that's life. And um the only thing that you can do is learn from that and be a better person and make sure that that doesn't happen again. So those are the lessons that I've been learning. That's what I think that's the big thing, as I turn 33 in a month. I was 16. I was like, I was a 16-year-old when I first started this channel. So, yeah, so you can see how everything's changed a lot. So, maybe I'll come back to this channel in another decade, maybe I won't. But let's see. And yeah, just life is an awfully big adventure, isn't it? So, see ya.